Frank Sheeran's shocking confession on his final days that he killed Jimmy Hoffa forms the basis of Martin Scorsese's epic mob film, The Irishman. However, much of what audiences see on screen appears to be fiction rather than fact. Sheeran's incredible story has been almost universally dismissed by those closely involved with the real-life events. When Sheeran spoke to author Charles Brandt during his waning years, he stunningly claimed to have pulled the trigger on his former friend Jimmy Hoffa in 1975.
I'm gonna whack this guy out like that. You just see your feet.
Seemingly solving one of the most notorious unsolved crimes in U.S. history. But in the years since the publication of Brandt's book, I Heard You Paint Houses, which became the source material for Scorsese's film, Sheeran's confession has faced overwhelming criticism and doubt from experts and investigators. So, did the infamous Irishman actually commit this act, or was it just an old man's last grab for notoriety? With so many questioning the legitimacy of Sheeran's tale, the far more likely scenario seems to be the latter. Harvard law professor Jack Goldsmith, who spent years rigorously investigating Hoffa's mysterious demise, flatly states that there is absolutely no basis for Sheeran's account of being the triggerman. The FBI's former lead investigator on the case, Andrew Sluss, went even further, dismissing Sheeran's filmed Deathbed confession as a laughable, sad, desperate attempt by the mobster to create a warped personal legacy for himself before death. In addition, reporter Bill Tonelli also investigated the Sheeran confession for Slate, interviewing police, prosecutors, reporters, and criminals in Philadelphia. During these interviews, none of the individuals who knew Sheeran from Philadelphia could corroborate that he ever killed anyone. With zero evidence backing Sheeran's murder claims and a legion of skeptics refuting his version of events, the prevailing theory is that the Irishman simply fabricated or wildly embellished his role in taking out Hoffa and other alleged hits. The Hoffa confession is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to questionable aspects of Sheeran's incredible story as portrayed in the film. The Irishman also depicts Sheeran gunning down the infamous Brooklyn gangster Crazy Joe Gallo in a brazen 1972 restaurant hit. Once again, this shocking claim completely contradicts evidence and eyewitness accounts from the time identifying low-level mobsters from the rival Colombo crime family as Gallo's killers, not Sheeran, an Irishman unaffiliated with that crew. Gallo's own widow, Sina Asari, stated definitively that the gunmen that day were little short, fat Italians, the complete opposite of how the towering 6'4" Sheeran was described. Taking his boastful tales to even grander heights, Sheeran further claimed to Brandt's book to personally have killed a staggering 25 to 30 people over his lifetime as a mafia hitman and enforcer for figures like Russell Bufalino. This would make the seemingly unremarkable man one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. However, Brandt himself conceded that he could never actually confirm or provide evidence that Sheeran committed a single murder besides his own deathbed confessions. These outlandish claims seem intended more to inflate Sheeran's legacy rather than reflect any verifiable facts. No other sources could corroborate the vast number of alleged killings or his direct involvement in so many high-profile murders. Without any documentation or corroboration of these sensational assertions, most historians view this purported body count as wholly fictionalized self-aggrandizement on Sheeran's part for the sake of crafting a grander criminal persona in his final years. Indeed, Sheeran does not appear to have a criminal record of being anything close to a prolific hitman, and most involved with the real-life events surrounding Hoffa's disappearance contradict and dismiss Sheeran's version as an embellished fabrication. Why would Frank Sheeran do this? Well, The Irishman portrays the former truck driver and World War II veteran as constantly preoccupied with shaping his personal myth and cementing a legendary status, even lying to his own family about his occupations and activities over the decades. Sheeran himself admits in the film to struggling with immense guilt and regret over his alleged criminal past, telling a priest it is this desire for confession and absolution that compels his shocking deathbed admissions. As his own mortality was inching closer, this internal crisis over how he would be remembered appears to have consumed Sheeran more than ever before. In that light, conspicuously confessing to infamous unsolved murders like Hoffa's was perhaps his way of both dealing with guilt and carving out a twisted form of historical notoriety and significance that he'd never truly earned or accomplished in reality. Financial motivations could have also played a role. After all, it was Sheeran's impassioned murder confession to Brandt that resulted in the author's best-selling book that first brought worldwide attention to his unbelievable life story. It seems likely that without such bold claims of pulling off devastating mob hits, Brandt's book and any subsequent film adaptation would have struggled to generate nearly the same level of interest, buzz, and profits. While Sheeran's credibility is essentially shredded when it comes to his sensational deathbed murder confessions, The Irishman falters even further in terms of overall historical accuracy to documented events beyond the Hoffa case. The film barely scratches the surface in depicting the real-life history of Jimmy Hoffa himself, glossing over his entire rise as an influential union leader through the 1930s to 60s. His famed battles with the Kennedy administration and the nationwide controversy sparked by his still unexplained disappearance in 1975. The movie also misrepresents the roles, connections, and dynamics between various key underworld figures portrayed. Mobsters like Russell Bufalino and Angelo Bruno are depicted as being far closer associates than they actually were in reality, with scenes of their partnerships largely fictionalized. Multiple key events are altered from the facts, with characters present who had no involvement, and the film's timeline is frequently fictionalized by portraying events like the Cuban Missile Crisis unfolding at dramatically different points than when they actually occurred. Even smaller background details about Frank Sheeran's own life are of dubious authenticity at best and likely completely embellished or made up at worst based on the lack of supporting evidence. While Sheeran's service in the 45th Infantry Division has been verified, some historians have questioned the truthfulness of his accounts of his wartime experiences. Mob researcher Rick Porrello has expressed doubts, writing that Sheeran's claims of combat service and violence have never been substantiated by official records. Porrello noted that although Sheeran served, the available military records show that he received no combat medals and had non-combat roles as a truck driver stationed stateside, contradicting his stories of frontline violence and killings. Historians like Porrello believe Sheeran exaggerated and embellished his wartime narratives to gain a false persona, as the records do not support his description of actions overseas. Other personal anecdotes depicted in flashbacks, like Sheeran getting into violent altercations over union disputes in his early working days, contradict available court records of the real incidents. Then there are Sheeran's most outlandish boastful claims, like direct involvement in historical events like the JFK assassination and planning the Bay of Pigs invasion. Such statements never came with anything remotely resembling proof, yet are breathlessly recounted in Brandt's book that became Scorsese's source material. So while The Irishman undoubtedly makes for incredible, engrossing viewing as an epic crime film, its status as a factual account of Frank Sheeran's life appear quite shaky. Rather than documentary truth, Scorsese's film brings to life the fictional version as self-mythologized by Sheeran in his final years, an ailing man seeking one last claim to infamy. For all the controversy, The Irishman still represents an achievement for Scorsese in dramatizing Sheeran's demons and mythology. However, the real facts behind Hoffa's demise and Sheeran's ties remain mysteries that the film's premise may overshadow. Hollywood's interpretation could become the definitive depiction, embellishments included, eclipsing the full truth that may never be known. The Irishman offers an incredible experience, even if reality differs from Scorsese's speculation.